Vidunvata, while shaking. Vedamayam, personified Vedas. Nijam, own. Vapuhu, body. Janaha, the Jana-loka planetary system. Tapaha, the Tapo-loka planetary system. Satya, the Satya-loka planetary system. Nivasinaha, the inhabitants. Vayam, we. Shata, hairs on the shoulder. Shika Buddhuta, sustained by the tip of the hair. Shiva, auspicious. Ambhu, water. Bindubihi, by the particles. Vimrujyamanaha, we are thus sprinkled by. Vrisham, highly. Isha, O Supreme Lord. Pavitaha, purified. Translation and purport by Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. O Supreme Lord, undoubtedly we are inhabitants of the most pious planets, the Jana, Tapas and Satya lokas. But still we have been purified by the drops of water sprinkled from your shoulder hairs by the shaking of your body. Please repeat the translation. O Supreme Lord, undoubtedly we are inhabitants of the most pious planets, the Jana, Tapas and Satya lokas. But still, we have been purified by the drops of water sprinkled from your shoulder hairs by the shaking of your body. Ordinarily, the body of a hog is considered impure, but one should not consider that the hog incarnate assumed by the Lord is also impure. That form of the Lord is the personified Vedas and is transcendental. The inhabitants of the Jana, Tapas and Satya lokas are the most pious persons in the material world. But because those planets are situated in the material world, there are so many material impurities there also. Therefore, when the drops of water from the tips of the Lord's shoulder hairs were sprinkled upon the bodies of the inhabitants of the higher planets, they felt purified. The Ganges water is pure because of its emanating from the toe of the Lord. And there is no difference between the water emanating from the toe and that the tips of the hair on the shoulders of the Lord bore. They are both absolute and transcendental. Presents the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamy Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaurabha Bhaktarunda, Hare Krishna to Lord Varaha. So they are appreciating the water that has fallen on their bodies when the Lord started shaking his body. So they are saying, Vidunvata Vedamayam Nijam Vapuhu. Vidunvata, while the Lord was shaking, who was that personality who was shaking? Vedamayam, personified of Vedas. And what was his body? Nijam Vapuhu, his own transcendental body. Personified Vedas, he has a personality, that's what his point is being enumerated. He is not impersonal. He is shaking his own body. Then, Janas Tapas Satya Nivashino Vayam. We who are inhabitants of all the pious planets, Jana Loka, Tapas Loka and Satya Loka. Shata Shika Uddhuta Shivambhu Bindabir. The particles of water which was there on the shoulders, the hair on the shoulders of the body of the Lord. Vrimrujyamanaha Brishamisha Pavita. When the Lord started shaking his bodily hairs, the water sprinkled on the personalities in the higher planetary systems, and they all felt highly purified. Brishamisha Maninaha, O Supreme Lord, Ishaha. Brisham Pavitaha, we all became very highly purified. Even though we are in the pure planetary systems, in the higher planetary systems, but still the water which emanated from your body has even more purified. So with that perspective, Prabhupada explains, the inhabitants of the higher planets are the most pious persons in the material world. But still they are in the material world, there are so many material impurities there also. But because it is part of the material world, not everybody is pure. As the higher planetary systems we go, the consciousness becomes pure. The higher planetary system is the Brahmaloka, where the jivas are of Shuddha Sattva category, almost to the Shuddha Sattva category. But still a tinge of materialism can exist in the material world, because of the modes are not pure here. So at any time, because of bad association, we might get affected. When the drops of the water from the tips of the Lord's shoulder hairs were sprinkled upon the bodies of the inhabitants of the higher planets, they felt purified. So here the perspective is Ganges water which is emanating from the Lord's lotus feet, and the water which emanated from the hair of the tip of the body hairs of the Lord are non-different, because they are all connected with the Lord. So everything is of same auspicious capacity. So people also consider the material world, the hog is considered as impure, but the Lord here is considered as very pure. So we all know Ganges is a pure water. We all go to Ganges, or when somebody passes away, we even go to disperse the ashes of the person who has passed away, so that they get Sadgati. So generally, we all see one perspective. When somebody passes away, in a WhatsApp message comes, so and so passed away. Immediately, everybody will be start sending the message. What do they send? Rest in peace. Where is peace? And where is rest? In this material world, the jiva is continuously in rotation. So there is no stationary aspect there. And we would have acted in such a sinful opportunity, there is no peace in our life. So then what we should say if somebody passes away? So generally Shastras recommend Sadgati Praptirastu. We should pray in such a way that they get a good destination, Sadgati. That should be the holy intention. Rip means tear apart. So when he is dead, you are asking him to tear apart, open up and see what is there. Nothing will be there. So our consciousness is very important for us. So if the water which emanated from the toe of the Lord is so pure, what to speak of the Lord? He will be the most purified personality. So what is so special about this Ganges? Why it is so purifying? So all the verses majorly in Bhagavatam which talk about this aspect, we will try to understand about this Ganges and the Supreme Lord. Atapi yatpada nakavasrishtam jagad virincha upahrutat arhana ambaha shesham punati anyatamo mukundat konamaloke bhagavat padartaha. He says, konamaloke bhagavat padartaha anyatamaha mukundaha. Who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna? If there should be a Supreme Personality, it should be Lord Sri Krishna only. There is no other name better than Mukundaha. Because Virinchi Upahruta, Lord Brahma collected Upahruta. What did he collect? Yatpada Naka Avasrishtam, the water which has washed the lotus feet of the Lord. When the Lord was in the form of Vamana, when he expanded his feet touched to the tip of the universe. So when it was passing through the Satyaloka system, Brahmaji washed that feet from the water from his Kamandulu, and it said that water became purified like Ganges. Because as soon as the Lord's lotus feet touched the universal coverings, it pierced a hole. And because of that, the water, that Karana Jala, entered into this material world, washing the Lord's lotus feet. So that water, Karana Jala, in this world became as the Ganges, along with the water that was washed by Brahma's lotus feet. So Lord Brahma collected that water. For what purpose did he collect? Arhana Ambaha, in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipable welcome. Because when great personalities come, you should offer them something auspicious. So, who is the greatest personality than Brahma? It will be Lord Shiva, because he is advanced, spiritually more advanced than Lord Brahma. That's why he says, Atapi Shesham Punati Jagat. What to speak of Lord Shiva? It purifies the water, the Ganges water, it purifies the entire universe. Atapi Shesham Punati Jagat. It purifies the entire universe. What to speak of mere Lord Shiva only? Ya vai lashat Shri Tulasi Vimishra Krishnangi Renu Abhyadikambu Netrihi Punati Lokan Ubayatra Sheshan Kastam Na Sevate Marishyamanaha. So he said, Abhyadika Ambuhu, the water, Ganges, this carries the most auspicious water. What is so special? It is most auspicious. Why? Because Lasat Shri Tulasi Vimishra Krishnangi Renu. It is mixed with the lotus feet of the Lord and the tulasi which was offered there to the lotus feet of the Lord and the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord, because all these things are there. So that water became very auspicious. Therefore, Punati Lokan Ubayatra. It purifies the entire material worlds, inside and outside. Ubayatra. And Sa Ishan. It also purifies even Lord Shiva. Sa Ishan. And even other demigods. Because Kastam na seveta marishyamanaha. The persons who are destined to die in this material world, Jivaha, everybody are destined to die. So what is the duty for them? Is consequently everyone who is destined to die must take shelter of this river. So this is the perspective. We should take shelter of Ganges. That's why it is said that people, when somebody passes away, if they could not, in olden days what happened, people used to take naturally an opportunity to quit the family life and go and settle in some of these spiritually potent places. Kashi, Varanasi, or Haridwar, Rishikesh, Vrindavan, Mathura. And generally they used to say Kashi Yatra. In the last stage means Kashi Yatra means he is proceeding and he will not come back. So they are detached from this family perspective. So recently I was hearing, why do they offer this ashes into river Ganges? What was the story behind? So they are taking a reference from Mahabharata. We know Ganga, she had 8 children. Bhishma was the 8th child. But before that there were 7 children. So who are the 7 other children? They are all the Vasus. So Vasus had prayed that they don't want to take birth in this material world when they were cursed by Vashishta. So they had prayed that they don't want to take birth from any material mother's womb. So at that time, Mother Ganges was also cursed to take birth in this material world in the personified form. So they all requested Mother Ganges, we will take birth from you, and as soon as we take birth, you just leave it in the water so that we can go to our respective positions. So in that way, the first 7 children, because there was one condition when Ganges was married with Shantanu, she put one condition that whatever she does, Shantanu should not question. The moment he questions, she will leave him and go away. So because he is bound by the commitment, every time the child will take birth, she will just go and dispose that child into the Ganges. So in that way, 7 children were lost. So everybody were wondering, what is she doing? And nobody had the audacity to question. Even the king himself is not questioning her. At the 8th time, when he could not bear, he went and asked the wife, why are you killing the children? So then as soon as he questioned, he broke his promise. Ganga Devi quits with him and goes away. And she takes the son also, that becomes Bhishma Devavrata, who will be trained, and later he will be handed over to Shantanu Maharaj. So saying that because when the Ganges has been disposing the child, they are having that higher destinations. They are going to that respective places. So people have this sentiment that you go and dispose the ashes into the river Ganges, they will also get higher destination. And there are certain places like in Kashi, there is one place called as Manikarnika Ghat. There continuously bodies will be burnt. So there is one prophecy that anybody who dies in Kashi and whose body is burned in that Manikarnika Ghat, they will achieve liberation. How Lord Shiva can give liberation? Because Mukti Pradata iti Mukundaha, only Mukunda can give liberation. We never heard that any demigods give liberation. They cannot, anybody cannot give opportunity of liberation. How Lord Shiva is able to here present liberation? So the Acharyas say, Lord Shiva acts as the spiritual master for the people who die there, and he chants the holy name in the dying person's ear. Like at the last moment, if you are able to remember, Antakale chamam yeva smaran mukta kalevaram yat prayasi samadbhavam yati nasti atra shamsha. If you think of the Lord at the last moment of your life, you will go back home, back to Godhead. So Lord Shiva, acting as a spiritual master, gives the jiva an opportunity of remembering the holy name when he chants that holy name into the ear of that living entity, so that they all become liberated from this material world. In that way, they present liberation. As the Acharya, they present liberation, not in the demigod status level. So that's why now people take this as granted. Oh, anybody whose body is burnt here, they will all go back home, back to Godhead. Anywhere they will die, they will bring the body and start burning here. People from so many other villages, so many other places, far distant places also, they just bring it and they start burning here. Or they just leave the dead body into the river Ganges itself. So these are, because they know Ganges is so pure, because it emanated from the lotus feet of the Lord, it gives a higher destination. Everybody has this conception. That is better idea, okay. But again, it depends upon the karma of that living entity also. So wherever they are there, they will get a good opportunity to practice these Krishna conscious perspectives in their next life. That is the understanding what we get. Next further it says, Esham bibarbi aham akanda vakunta yoga maya vibhutir amalangri rajak kiritaihi Vipram sukona vishaheta yad arhanambaha sadhya punati sahachandra lalama lokan. Lord is saying, Aham akanta vaikunta yoga maya vibhutir. I am the master of my unobstructed internal potency. And yad arhana ambaha, the water which has washed my feet has become Ganges. Sadhyaha punati lokan, and it immediately purifies the entire three worlds. Because Ganges is the only river which flows across 14 planetary systems. One river from Satyaloka to Pathalaloka. This is the one river which flows everywhere in this 14 planetary system. So it purifies all the planetary systems in this universe. And Sahachandra Lalama, it also purifies Lord Shiva, who has a moon on his head as a decoration. Chandra Lalama. Then Yesham bibarmi vipramstu amalangri rajaha kiritaihi. If sometimes Lord, what he does is, he wants to glorify his devotees, so he takes the dust of his devotees onto his head. We know this story when one day he wanted to show how gopis are so great. So Krishna enacted one pastime that he said he had severe headache. And nobody was able to give proper cure to this headache. So they tried all possible means, but there was no relief for the Lord. Then they asked the Lord, how it can be cured, because unless you say we will not be able to administer you proper medicine for it. Then Lord said, if somebody can give me the dust of their lotus feet, and if I apply the dust to my head, then automatically my headache goes away. Then they were to different devotees. Then different devotees said, no, how it is possible that we give our dust to the Lord? We will all go to hell. So finally, they went to Vrindavan. They asked the gopis that Krishna is having serious trouble with headache. He is not able to, so Shri Radha Govinda ki. So he is not able to peacefully sleep. He is having severe headache. He is having severe problem. So gopis, when they heard that Krishna is having problem, they immediately removed dust and they said, please take it. We don't bother whether we go to hell or heaven, doesn't matter for us. Krishna should be happy. We only want that perspective. So Krishna wanted to glorify his devotees, that highest devotion. So when Krishna is saying, I place the dust of my devotees in my head, what to speak of common people? Everybody should endeavor for that perspection. Then further, in one more place it says, Kim durapadanam tesham pumsam uddama chetasam air ashritas tirtha padas charano vyasanatyayah. Kim durapadanam tesham. What is difficult to achieve? For whom? Pumsam uddama chetasam. For those people who are very determined in their spiritual life. And air ashritas tirtha padavaha. And those who have taken absolute shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what is there something which they cannot achieve? Because of taking the complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Charano vyasana atyayaha. Because his feet are the source of sacred rivers like Ganges, which put an end to dangers of mundane life. So if you take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, then there is nothing to be afraid of. One more place it also says, Yakshausha nishrishta sarit pravardokena tirtena murdani adhikrutena shiva abhut dhyatur manashamala shaila nrishishta vajram dhyaye chiran bhagavatas sharanarvindam. Shiva abhut. Lord Shiva, who is auspicious, he became even more auspicious. For what? Sarit pravara udakena tirthena mudari adhikrutena. By placing the water which emanated from the lotus feet of the Lord on the top of his head. On the top of Lord Shiva's head there is Jata. Inside that Jata he gave shelter to Mother Ganges. So because in the material world when Bhagirath prayed, so Mother Ganges wanted to appear in this material world, but because of the force coming from the higher planetary systems, the earth will break away apart. It will break into pieces because of the heavy force. Then she wanted some shelter. So then she suggested you go and pray to Lord Shiva. So then when again he prayed to Lord Shiva, then Ganges entered into his Jata. From there it becomes into little slower way, so that the earth doesn't become shattered by the process. So Lord Shiva became purified or auspicious because he was carrying the water which has washed the lotus feet of the Lord in the form of Mother Ganges. Yet Shosha Nisrushta, which has its source at the water that washed the Lord's lotus feet. And what is so special? Dhyatur manas shamala saila nrishishta vajram. The Lord's lotus feet are like a thunderbolt. And with the thunderbolt, Lord Indra breaks the mountains. So the Lord's lotus feet are the thunderbolt to break the mountains of sins which are accumulated within our lifetimes. From unlimited lives, we have been contaminated by so many sinful activities. They have become like a mountain like sin. And the Lord's lotus feet are like thunderbolts which will shatter these mountains to pieces. So that all our sinful reactions are gone. So therefore, dhyaye chiram bhagavata sharanarvindam. One should always meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Then one more. Tatpada saucham jana kalmashapaham sadarmavin murdani adadat sumangalam yadheva devo girishas chandra maulir dadata murdana parayacha bhaktya. Girisha, Lord Shiva, who is known as Deva Devaha, the best of the demigods. Chandramauli, who carries on his forehead an emblem of moon. Yad dadara murdana parayacha bhaktya, with great attention and devotion, he carries that water which has washed the Lord's lotus feet on his head. Saha dharmavid, being aware of the religious principles. Jana kalmasha apaham, and free from all sinful reactions, Bali Maharaj. So he knew this value of the water that has washed the Urukrama's feet. Because as Lord appeared in his arena as a Brahmana small boy, Bali Maharaj could understand he is a great personality. So when he washed the lotus feet, that water he understood, the same water which Lord Shiva had kept. So he also could understand the value of that water which has washed the lotus feet of Lord Vamana. So following in the footsteps, Murdani Adadat Sumangalam, he placed that same water on the top of his head. Following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva. Tatpada Socham, that water that has washed the Lord's lotus feet, Bali Maharaj set an example similarly. So then one more place it says, Dhatu Kamandala Jalam Tad Urukramasya Padavanejane Pavitrataya Narendra Swarduni Abun Namasi Sapatati Nimarshti Lokatrayam Bhagavato Vishadeva Kirti. O Narendra, O my dear king, Dhatu Kamandala Jalam, the water from Lord Brahma's Kamandalu. Tad Urukramasya, washed the lotus feet of Lord Urukramaha. Then Pada Avajanena Pavitrataya Swarduni Abun. Then that water became so pure that it transformed into river Ganges. Then Nabasi Sapatanti started flowing from the top planetary systems, Nabasi from the sky. Then Nimarshti Lokatrayam, it started purifying all the three planetary systems. Then Bhagavato Vishadeha Kirtihi, like the pure fame of the Supreme Lord, the water became equivalent to the Supreme Lord's mercy. In that way, so that as the Supreme Lord, anything connected with the Supreme Lord becomes so glorious, it purifies the entire universe. Because the water was connected with the Supreme Lord, it started purifying the entire universe. So such are the unique pastimes of the water which emanated from the body of the Lord. With any part of the body, because Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. The Lord is so special that any part of his body can act like any other part. So there are unique pastimes like this in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela also. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, when they were in Navadvip area, so Nityananda Prabhu used to be invited for feast in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's home. So Sachi Mata, she had an experience by seeing Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In their house, they had small Krishna Balaram deities and Shaligrama Murti. So what was her dream and how was her experience? How Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relates and correlates with that subject also is explained here. Ekadina ai kichu dekila swapne. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, one day my mother saw in a dream, Nibrute Kahila Putra Vishwambara Sthane. In a secluded place, she started narrating to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what she saw in the dream. Nishi Avashesha Muni Dekilun Swapna. In the Nishi Avashesha, at the end of the morning, at the end of the night, means in the early morning, she had a dream. Tumi are Nityananda, Ei Dui Jana. So both you and Nityananda Prabhu, both of you. Vatsara Panchera Dui Choyala Hoyama. Both of you became like a small kids of 5 years age. Ramari Karu Donhe Vedhavo Dhaya. And both of you ran into the deity room. Dui Jana Sandaila Goshanira Gare Ramakrishna Lai Donhe Hoila Bahare. Then both of you appeared like 5-year-old boys. You were quarreling together and chasing each other. In this way, both of you entered the deity room and came out holding Krishna and Balarama in your hands. Tarahate Krishna Tumila Balarama. Chari Jane Mara Mari Mora Vidyamana. So I saw 4 of you quarreling together. He had Krishna in his hands and you had Balarama. So Nityananda Prabhu was holding to Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was holding to Balarama, and all 4 of you are fighting. Ramakrishna Thakura Bholaye Kruddha Hoya Ke Tora Adhangati Dui Bahiro Ogia. The deities Krishna and Balarama angrily said, "Who are you? Imposters, get out of here." Ei badi ei gara saba ama donha kara. Ei sandesha dadi dugda yata upahara. He said, this house, these rooms, everything belongs to us. This sandesh, this yogurt, this milk, all belongs to us. Nityananda bole, say kala gaya vela. Your time passed away. This is not your time. This is our time. Ei kale kaila dadi navani lutiya. That days when you stole yogurt and butter to eat are gone. It is not your time. Guchila goyala haila vipra adhikari. Apane chiniya chada sabha upahara. The days of cowhead boys are gone. Now the Brahmanas have taken charge. Recognize us and allow us to enjoy all these offerings. Prite yedi na chadiba kaiba marana lutiya kaila va rakibe konjana. If you do not affectionately allow us to eat, then you will be beaten. Moreover, if we forcibly eat, who can stop us? Ramakrishna bole, Aji mora doshanai, Bandiya edimu dui, Dhanga eitani. Then Lord Rama and Krishna said, it will not be our fault if we bind you imposters here today. दोहाई कृष्णेरा यदि आजी करो नामा नित्यानंद प्रति तार्जा गर्ज करे रामा. Then Balarama threatened Nityananda, in the name of Krishna, you better not misbehave today. Nityananda bole, Tora Krishnera ki dara, Gaurachandra Vishwambara, Amara Ishvara. Nityananda Prabhu replied, I am not afraid of Krishna. I have my Lord Gaurachandra. Mate kalaha kare chari jana, kada kadi kari sabha, karaya bhojana. In that way fighting, they started each other eating. Kaharo hatera keha kadi lai kaya, kaharo mukera keha muke diya kaya. Somebody snatched away from other's hand, somebody snatched away from the other's mouth, and they started eating. Janani boliya Nityananda dake mora, anna deha mata mora kshuddha bada kare. So she came out of dream only when Nityananda Prabhu said, Mother, give me more food. I am hungry, I am not satisfied. Yateka bolita muni chetana pulakinchu na bujhilun muni tomare kahilun. When Nityananda Prabhu said this to me, I woke up, but I could not understand anything. So I am relating this to you. Hase Prabhu Vishwambara suniya swapana jananira prati bole madura vachana. So by hearing, he became very smiley, happy. And he said in a most pleasing voice, he said, Badai susapna tumi dekhi ache mata. You saw a great dream. Arakaro tani pache kahi e kata. Please do not reveal this to anybody else. Nobody will believe this. Amara garera burti parateka bada mora chitta tomara swapnete hoila bada. The deities of our life, the deities of our house have life. And our dream has firmly established this fact in my heart. Muni dekon bhara bare naivedyera saje, ada adi na take na kahon karalaje. When I offer naivedya in the deity room, I always see items are only half. I offer 4 pieces, there will be only 2 pieces left over. So he's saying, now I have understood that whatever dream you are saying, it is in correlation. Tomara vadura more sandeha achila. I had doubt on your daughter-in-law, whether she is eating or what. Aji se amara mane sandeha guchila. And today my doubt was clarified. No, she is not eating. Lord was eating. Hase Lakshmi Jaganmata Swamira Vachane. Then Vishnu Priya, when she was hearing the words of her husband Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she laughed. Antare takiya sabha swapna kata sune. When she heard the entire narration of the dream from within the another room. Vishwambara bole, Mata sunaha vachana, Nityananda ani jhata karaha bhojana. He said, my dear mother, I am going to call Nityananda Prabhu, please prepare some lunch for both of us. Putrera vachane suchi harisha hoila, bhikshara samagriyata karite lagila. She started making arrangements, she became very happy. So she started arrangements for the cooking. Nityananda sthane gela Prabhu Vishwambara nimantrana giyatane karila satvara. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Nityananda Prabhu's place and he said, my mother has given you an invitation, come to our house. Today lunch is from my house. Amara badite aji goshanira bhiksha, chanchalata na kariba, karai lashika. He said, don't behave like a child. So today you are going to my house, be like a proper gentleman. Karanadari Nityananda Vishnu Vishnu bole. Then he closed his ears and said, Vishnu Vishnu. Chanchalata kare yata pagala sakale. Do you think I am a person mad like you? Ye bujiya mora tumi vasaha chanchala. You think that everybody acts like you? I am not pagala. Apanara mata tumi dekaha sakala. Because you are pagala, you are thinking everybody is pagala. Ei bate dui jana hasite Krishna kata kahi aila badiko. So both of them talking in this way, laughing. By discussing about Krishna kata, they reached the house of Sachi Mata. Hasya vashila ekatani dui jana. So laughingly they both sat at one place. Gadadara adi ara paramapta gana. And with all the close associates like Gadadhar Pandit, they all were also there nearby. Ishana Dilena Jala Duita Charane Nityananda Sange Gela Karita Bojane. Then Ishana, who was the servant of Mother Sachi, came there, washed their feet and took them inside the room for serving the food. Vasilena Dui Prabhu Karita Bojana Kushalyara Gare Yena Sri Rama Lakshmana. Kaushalyara Gare. So when the both Prabhus sat down to eat food, it was like in the Kaushalya's house. Rama and Lakshmana were sitting and honoring. It was a similar situation. Ei mata dui Prabhu karaye bhojana, sei bhave sei preme, sei dui jana. So in the same mood, same feeling, same affection, both of them are sitting and eat and honoring their lunch. Pariveshana kare ai parama santoshe. Mother was serving them and she was catering for their requirements in a very happy mood. Tribhaga haila bhiksha dui jana hase. Then she made arrangement for 3 plates. Then both of them started laughing. She has gone into ecstasy. She has become pagala. She put 3 plates when we 2 people are there. Arabara asi ai dui jana deke vatsara panchera shishu deke parateke. In the next moment, mother saw these 2 Gaur Nityananda became again child of 5 years old. Krishna Shukla Varna deke dui manohara, dui jana chaturbuja, dui digambara. When she saw 2 enchanting boys, both were Krishna Shukla, one was black, other was white, and both had 4 arms and both were naked. Shankha Chakra Gada Padma, Srihala Maushala, Srivasta Kaushubadeke, Makara Kundala. She saw all the Shankha Chakra Gada Padma, all the 4 arms, then Srihala Mushala, then she also saw Plow Mushala, then Srivasta Kaustuba, mark of Srivasta and Kaustuba on their chests, and Deke Makara Kundala, and she saw ears with shark shaped. Apanara Vadu deke putrera hrudaye sakrut dekiya ara dekite napaye. When she saw Lakshmi Devi on the chest of the Lord, Vakshasthala, she became ecstatic. The whole scene disappeared. Padila murchitahana prithvira tale tittila vasana sabe nayanera jale. She became ecstatic and she became fell down on the ground and she became lost consciousness, and from her eyes there were torrents of water. The entire area became inundated with water. Annamaya sarvagara haila takane apurva dekiyasi sachi bahya nahi jane. So the entire area became spread with grains because the entire food was spread over, and she was not in external consciousness. Ate vyate Mahaprabhu achamana kari gaye hate diya jananira tole tari. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed his hand in a anxiety. He went and picked up his mother onto his lap. Uta uta mata tumi stira kara chitta. He said, better wake up mother, be pacified. Kenava padila prithvite achambita. Suddenly, how did you fall onto this earth? Bahya pai ai ate vyate kesha bande na bolaye kichu ai griha madhye kande. She got up, she tied her hair and went away inside the house, and she started crying. She did not speak anything. Maha dirgha swasa chade kampa sarva ghaya preme paripurna haila kichu nahi bahya. She was in ecstasy. Tears were rolling from her eyes. She was nothing. She came to her mind. She was breathing heavily. Her body was trembling. Ishana karila sabha gruha upaskara yata chila avashesha shakala tanhara sevilena sarvakala ayira ishana chaturdasha loka madhye maha bhagyavan. So Ishana came there, cleaned that entire area, picked up entire grains, and he honored that Mahaprasadam. And he is the most fortunate person in this material world because he had been serving Mother Sachi Devi for the entire her life, and she was personally there. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, he has taken in charge to take care of the mother. Ei mata aneka kautika pratidine marmi bhrutya bhai iha kehana hi jane. In that way, many sweet pastimes happened every day. No one except the confidential servants of the Lord know about them. So in that way, Lord's pastimes are unique. Lord's pastimes are glorious. They will attract our consciousness and they will hook our consciousness towards the lotus feet of the Lord, so that we all become attached to them and we become purified in the process, and we all go back home, back to Godhead. That was the whole intention. So there are many other pastimes we will keep understanding in the future classes. I'll stop here. Any questions or doubts? Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Sai Gaur Prema.
గోల్డెన్ టెంపుల్ వారి మరో అపురూప కానుక హరే కృష్ణవాణి ఆధ్యాత్మిక మాసపత్రిక. ఇప్పుడు మొబైల్ యాప్ ద్వారా కూడా సులభంగా పత్రికలు చదువుకునే సౌకర్యం, వార్షిక సభ్యత్వం, భగవద్గీత, భాగవత ప్రవచనాలు, స్ఫూర్తి సందేశాలు, ఇంకా మరెన్నో సదుపాయాలతో హరే కృష్ణవాణి మొబైల్ యాప్ నేడే డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకోండి. మరిన్ని వివరాల కోసం కాల్ చేయండి 9133107700. హరే కృష్ణ గోల్డెన్ టెంపుల్ వారి మరో అపురూప కానుక హరే